Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here to bring the Wednesday Night Football Showdown slate between the Ravens and the Steelers. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name is DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports daily fantasy sports slates. Before we get into the video, I want to thank you guys again for the continued support. It is greatly appreciated. The easiest way to support me, since all the content is free, is to leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't want to upload videos when you don't want to go live. The game starts tomorrow in the early afternoon, 2:40 Central. So yes, I will be live streaming for this one 30 minutes before lock, 2:10 Central, or 3:10 Eastern, to go over all the news. Right, there's probably still some situations here with COVID, with players possibly being in, possibly out. So we'll talk about that in the live stream, as well as answer all your guys' questions as well. Also, if you cannot watch the videos, do upload on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below, which is the DK DFS show. And if you enjoy it, would appreciate if you leave a 5-star rating and review. But with that all out of the way, let's jump into the video. So before we talk about players and the prices for Wednesday's Showdown slate, let's take a look back at my lineup here from Monday's Showdown slate. So Monday did not go great for me. It was a guessing game with either Lockett or DK Metcalf. I guessed wrong. It's literally every single week, one of these guys goes off and the other one completely busts. There's no in between with Lockett and Metcalf. Will there ever be a game where both of them finish 15 fantasy points? I don't think so. It's either one goes crazy and the other one does nothing. And if you didn't have DK Metcalf last night, you didn't win anything. So that was a big reason why. Obviously, I didn't get into the cash. I was about 50 percentile with my lineup here in the Millie Maker. Rieger, that I'm a bit tilted about, because I liked him in the cap spot. I liked him, Goddard. I like the pass catchers for Philly. We know, I talked about in the video, Rieger and Fulgham played over 90% of the snaps at last game. And if we take a look at the snap counts from Monday's game, not happy, right? What is Doug Peterson doing here? Rieger and Fulgham played about 50% of the snaps after playing over 90% the last game. They gave Alshon Jeffrey about 50% of the snaps after he played, 5% the last game? So that was super tilting, because, the reason I liked Rieger and Fulgham so much was they were basically going to play the entire game in good game scripts. And the Eagles just completely came out of nowhere here, Doug Peterson, with this, committee wide receiver, everyone playing 50% of snaps. It's just gross, just completely gross. And I'm still tilted about it. So that was super frustrating. But Goddard, obviously he did really well, but just no DK Metcalf for me, no cash. So let's take a look at the Vegas odds as well as the snap counts here for each of these teams in the last week. Obviously, a lot of things are going to change here for this game tomorrow, but let's probably have it up already. Let's go to Bovada. Let's go to NFL. And Ravens Steelers, right now it's a 42 over-under, so definitely on the low side. Obviously, we know Lamar's out. Possibly some of the running backs there for the Ravens. We have James Conner out on the other side. Steelers are currently 10-point favorites. So let's review the snap counts here for each of the teams in their most recent game. Again, Conner, he's the bell cow back, but he's out. He played 70% of snaps the last game, so looking like Benny Snell is probably going to be the lead back with McFarland mixed in a bit. Wide receivers for the Steelers, Deontay, Juju, Claypool, all are going to be out there a good amount, right? They like running through wide receiver sets. We know the Steelers, whether they're playing from ahead or playing from behind, they're just going to throw the ball a ton. So all three receivers, I expect to be out there majority of the game. James Washington, the number 4 guy. He'll play about 25% of the snaps, and Ray McLeod will get mixed in as well, probably about 25%. If you look at tight ends for the Steelers, Ebron basically played the entire game the last game, where he played 93% of the snaps. Zach Gentry played 8%. Gentry's out. We do have, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, Vance McDonald back for this one, so I expect him to get some work. His last game was in week 9, and I think he played like 30-ish% of the snaps. Let's go back to week 9 just take a look, just so we get a good idea of what we can expect there. Yeah, Vance McDonald played 29% in week 9. Week 8, I think he played like 40%. So probably he'll play about a third of the game is my best guess with regards to Vance McDonald. But running back, so this is a situation we'll have to kind of wait and see, right? Because originally it was Dobbins and Mark Ingram out, but now there's a decent chance they will play tomorrow. They can't fly in the team plane though. They have to like fly there separately. So this is a situation we'll monitor. Obviously, if Dobbins and Ingram can't go, then Gus Edwards and Justice Hill become more viable. If Dobbins and Ingram are there, then it's just a running back situation that I'm probably going to stay away from. Like the only guy I think I would take a shot on is Dobbins, but if you look at his DraftKings price, it's not like we're getting him at a discount. Wide receivers for Baltimore, we do have Willie Snead out on the COVID list, so Hollywood Brown should play majority of the game. I expect Des Bryant to be the number 2. He looked pretty good in their most recent game. And then Miles Boykin, Devin Duvernay, they should kind of mix in for the number 3 role. Probably expect around 40-ish% of the snaps for those guys. Both viable punt plays. And tight ends, well, Baltimore on the DraftKings slate right now currently has no tight ends. Mark Andrews is out. Luke Wilson was the backup last game, but doesn't look like he's going to be available. And then they have 2 guys in the practice squad, so we'll see what Baltimore does to tight end. Again, we'll talk about this more in the live stream as well. And lastly, I do want to thank Prize Picks for sponsoring the show, guys. If you guys are new to Prize Picks, you're curious to what it is, well, it's a site where you can bet on player props, right? So you're betting on over-unders for players, right? So Big Ben currently projected 19.9, right? So you bet the over-under there. You can bet anywhere from 2 to 5 players and win up to 10x your money. So if you guys are interested, it's kind of I like it a lot, right? It's different from DraftKings, right? You're not playing against anyone. So if you guys are interested in signing up, you can use the code DKDFS, all one word, to get a 100% match up to $100. So for example, you put $100 in, you get $200 to play with. So again, thank you Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. But let's now get into the DraftKings breakdown here. So at the top, we have Big Ben at 11.4K. Mentioned it, right? In the last couple games, they won 36-10 and 27-3, and he still threw the ball 46 times. Like Pittsburgh is just airing it out no matter what. Obviously raises the floor as well as the ceiling with Big Ben. And he is one of the safest, probably the safest play on the board right now, just because obviously we have no Lamar. Obviously the wide receivers for Pittsburgh, I would say probably have a little bit more upside if you're shooting for that GPP upside, but Big Ben is definitely the safest play on the board. Again, airing it out a ton. And yeah, I think he's a guy that you should include in your cash games if you are playing cash games. For GPPs, he's going to be very popular. Can you make the argument to fade? Yeah. Well, we saw it on Monday, right? Russell Wilson was 80 to 90% owned, and he was not in the winning lineup. So crazy things can happen. Again, I think you could fade in GPPs, but it's a pretty risky fade just due to the fact that Big Ben's going to air it out no matter what. And Lamar Jackson, he's got COVID, so he will not be playing tonight. We'll talk about RG3 here in a sec. And then they have the 3 Pittsburgh receivers. So Deontay, Claypool, Juju, all priced about the same. Deontay's the most expensive at 10.8. Claypool at 10.4, Juju at 9.6. Juju got banged up a bit last game, but he's good to go. Deontay Johnson has flashed probably the most upside in the games he's been healthy. Basically double-digit targets every single week that he's healthy. Claypool's also been a touchdown machine. Maybe not as many targets as Deontay, but still close to double-digit targets a game. And again, he's a guy they've been looking to in the red zone a ton. And then Juju, probably the guy that goes the lowest owned just because production for him has been a bit up and down. But honestly, I like all 3. This is kind of the same situation with Tampa Bay, right? Tampa Bay, you have 3 good wide receivers with Evans, with Antonio Brown, with Chris Godwin. You have to make some tough calls. Now, could you play all 3 of these guys? I've messed around with roster construction. You can. If you want to play Big Ben too, then you're probably going to have to play someone pretty cheap in the captain spot. But yeah, like I said, you are going to have to make tough calls. Deontay has flashed the most upside, but he is the most expensive. Claypool's the guy I've been looking to in the red zone a ton. Juju is the cheapest, but still possesses upside there at 9.6K. So James Conner, he's out. And we'll talk about Benny Snell, who was listed at 8.8K. I think Benny Snell is a fine option here, but the downside is just Pittsburgh. Even when they're playing from behind, they're just not running the ball, right? James Conner, in those games, they were playing from a huge lead. He only had 13 carries in each of those games, so that's not great. And Benny Snell is not a guy that's going to be involved a ton in the passing game, so not saying Benny Snell's out of play here. I like the upside more with the wide receivers. I think Benny Snell does go a bit lower owned, still viable, but not really someone I'm prioritizing. Now we have RG3 at 8.4K. I think that's a pretty good price for him. He's still a guy that possesses some rushing upside, even though he's getting up there in age now. Obviously not the same quarterback as Lamar Jackson here, but at this price point, I think he's certainly in play. In a game, they're probably playing from behind. Obviously, the matchup is not great. Pittsburgh's been really solid defensively, but I don't think RG3 is going to be super popular. And I like the price, 8.4K. I think he is still one of the better mid-range plays on the slate. We know obviously quarterbacks have a pretty high floor. With RG3, I think the floor is pretty solid due to his rushing upside. And again, they're probably playing from behind as well. So yeah, RG3 is definitely someone I like here in the mid-range. I don't think he's going to be super popular. Yeah, I think the popular build for the slate is probably going to be like a 5-1 Pittsburgh stack, honestly. Like Big Ben, a couple of receivers, maybe one or two cheap Steelers, and then run it back with one Raven. Like I think that's probably going to be the popular build. So yeah, RG3 I don't think will be super popular. Carson Wentz, talked about him last slate, right? He was like 30% owned. He was actually outscored Russell Wilson, even though it was ugly. But yeah, RG3 is definitely someone I like here in the mid-range. I don't think he's going to be super popular. With the Steelers defense at 7-8, you guys know how I feel about defenses that are this expensive, right? We've seen it 2 or 3 slates this year where defense has been over 7K, and they've been like 40% owned. So if the Steelers are going to get anywhere close to that, which I think they will, right? We saw the Patriots defense, and I forget there was one other defense too as well. I think it was against the Giants. It was a Bucs defense that were over 7K. And in the Millie Maker, they were like 40% owned. It doesn't make sense, right, to go to play the Steelers defense if they're going to be 40% owned. Like at this price, you really need like a defensive score. So can you still play the Steelers defense? Yeah, you can. But it's a contrarian play at this price, right? If you're making 10 lineups, maybe throw them in 1 or 2. But I have a good feeling the Steelers defense are once again going to be really popular. And at this price point, it just doesn't make sense. So, Dobbins, Mark Ingram. They haven't listed as COVID right now, but they will be, looks like they'll be eligible or they'll be activated. Again, we'll monitor the situation going into tomorrow, but Dobbins at 7-2. And in that last game, he got, let's go to Baltimore. He got kind of bell cow work, 63% of the snaps. Normally, this has kind of been a running back by committee here with Baltimore. But yeah, Dobbins played over 60% of the snaps. Now, again, the tough part is 7.2K. We're not getting him at a discount. If he was like 4K, then I would feel a lot more comfortable with him. But yeah, what is the workload going to be? Again, hasn't been able to practice due to COVID, so there's a lot of risk involved. I think he's just a contrarian play at this price. Again, no Mark Andrews. Eric Ebron's at 6'6". I think he goes a bit overlooked. He's been pretty solid. He's running a good amount of routes. He's playing majority of the game. He played over 90% of the snaps out last game. Targets, averaging about 6 targets a game. I think he's a decent option. I have no issue if go Ebron here in the mid-range. I think he goes maybe a little bit overlooked. But still possesses some upside. Still a guy to look to in the red zone, right? 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So yeah, Ebron definitely fine with. Gus Edwards at 6'2", I don't have interest in. Especially if Dobbins and Ingram are available. There's just no way I'm playing Gus Edwards. Now, if they're both out, can you make an argument for Gus Edwards? Yeah, but again, at this price, he doesn't really have any. He's not going to catch a ton of balls. So either way, I'm not really excited about Gus Edwards there at that price point. So now we get to kind of the more value plays here. Hollywood Brown's at 5'8". Definitely in play because he possesses some upside. But we haven't really seen a ton of it this year. I do expect him to still play majority of the game against a tough matchup. So am I prioritizing Hollywood Brown on the slate? No. I think he's more of a contrarian play, but he possesses upside. I would much rather play Hollywood Brown than Gus Edwards. I would probably rather play Hollywood Brown than J.K. Dobbins at that price. just because Hollywood Brown has the ability to have a big game, right? We know he's got the breakaway speed. All you need is one play from him, right? So Hollywood Brown, definitely someone I'm looking to in the mid-range, and I think still more of a contrarian play, but like his upside, right? We know the upside is there with him. Mark Ingram at 5'2", in my opinion, is probably the easiest fade of the slate. Again, also is dealing with COVID, but looks like he'll be activated. Look at that last game. He played 9% of snaps. So at 5.2K, there's just no way I'm playing Mark Ingram. And Willie Snead out due to COVID as well. So Dez Bryant should work in as kind of the number 2 guy here. And that last game, he had 4 catches and 5 targets, and he played about 50% of snaps. I expect that to go up. And at this price point, I feel a little bit more comfortable with Dez actually than Hollywood Brown. Now, I would say probably Hollywood Brown does have more upside than Dez at this point in his career, but I like the floor with Dez. Again, I expect him to be the number 2 guy. He looked pretty decent in that last game, so I'm definitely considering Dez here for value. But with the kickers, Boswell and Tucker, I would rather play Boswell. We talked about that on Monday with Seattle's kicker. Just go with the kicker that on the team that's favored. So I feel more comfortable with Steelers scoring points here. Boswell's actually been pretty solid this year as far as kicking purposes go. Definitely has upside. We've seen kickers get to 15 fantasy points. So I think Boswell would be the guy I would look to for kicker over Justin Tucker. Not saying Tucker's out of play, but if you're going to make me pick, I would feel more comfortable with Boswell. James Washington's at 3.6. A little pricey for, number 4 at best. Again, probably number 5 behind Ebron. In the target share, I expect probably about a quarter of the game here for James Washington. Last 3 games, 1, 2, and 1 catch. So is he still in play? Yeah, but at this price, that doesn't really stand out as an amazing play. Now, Devin Duvernay's at 3.2K. Expect him and Miles Boykin to kind of work in as the number 3 for Baltimore. Duvernay's at 3.2. Again, hasn't really been targeted a ton. Hasn't caught a ton of passes. So, yeah, playable, but not like overly excited about it. Does possess speed though, and is the returner, right? We saw in one of the showdown slates earlier this year, he returned one for a touchdown, and obviously you get 6 points for that. So yeah, still he has breakaway speed. The Ravens defense are at 3K. Like honestly, I would rather play the Ravens defense than the Steelers. It's just a price thing, right? It's 7-8. It doesn't make sense for me to get to the Steelers defense. 3K is a much more viable price. Now again, I only play one lineup. So am I going to get to the Ravens defense? Probably not, but I would feel more comfortable with them compared to the Steelers. Now, Anthony McFarland's at 2.6K. He should be the number 2 behind Benny Snell. Again, downside here is just Pittsburgh's not running the ball a ton. So what do I expect from McFarland for workload-wise? Probably anywhere from, 5 to 7 touches would probably be my best guess. At this price, again, playable, but not like overly excited about it. Justice Hill's at 2.2K, so this is one where if Dobbins and Ingram can't go, then I actually really like Justice Hill because he would probably be the number 2. He'd probably be used as the pass-catching running back, right? Definitely a better pass catcher than Gus Edwards. So this is a situation to monitor. Even in that last game when everyone is healthy, he actually got some touches, right? He played 11% of the snaps. So if both Dobbins and Ingram are there, then I'm probably not going to look to Hill. If we do get news that they can't go, then Hill becomes a lot more viable here at 2.2K. So that's a standard if-then statement. Now, Miles Boykin's at 1.8. Snaps are going down for him. 1, 2, and 1 catches in the last 3 games. Yeah, I think he's someone that, again, he played 23% of snaps in their most recent game. Again, that was week 11. I guess he didn't have a catch. They don't have this updated, or they didn't put 0 in there. Again, in play. Him, Duvernay, should work in as the number 3 guy here for Baltimore. Again, viable, but I'm not super excited about it. There's really no value play I'm over the moon on. Ray McLeod's at 1.2K. I think he's someone that you can look to. He'll kind of get mixed in with James Washington as the number 4 receiver. He's actually had a carry in the last couple games as well at 1.2K. I think he's fine. Again, there's no real standout value really below 3 to 4K. So again, someone you can look to. And then finally, I want to mention Vance McDonald. Again, he should be the number 2 guy here for Pittsburgh. What do I expect from him for snaps wise? Well, again, I expect probably a third of the game, 30 to 40% of the snaps. No Gentry. So yeah, he'll be the number 2 tight end. In last games he's played, he's had 3, 1, 2, and 1 catches. So at $400, if you need someone super, super cheap, I don't think he's the worst play here. Last season he's shown he's still a decent pass catching tight end. So yeah, I have some interest there in Vance McDonald as a punt play. And then the tight ends for Baltimore, it's kind of annoying they don't have Luke Wilson on there. We still don't know who the tight end is going to be for Baltimore. They have Tomlinson, they have Adams in the practice squad. Luke Wilson, they don't even have in the slate. I guess he's still in the practice squad as well. And then Boyle and Mark Andrews are not available. So, yeah, this is a weird one. We'll see if Tomlinson or Adams get called up. Potential dart throw if they do. But, yeah, that really wraps it up for the player-by-player breakdown here, guys. So let's talk about captains. Again, I think the safe way to go about this slate is probably a Pittsburgh stack. So, you probably go, for cash games, I probably would go Big Ben in the captain. And then probably, one or two of his main receivers with Deontay, Claypool, and Juju. And then could you go RG3 in cash? I think you can just because of his rushing ability. So maybe you start it with Big Ben, RG3, and can you get 2 of the receivers and still feel comfortable about it? Yeah, then you have to get some pretty cheap guys. So that's probably how I would go about a cash game format is Big Ben, a couple of receivers, and RG3. And then you would have to go value from there. If we're talking about GPPs, again, I always mention this, but about 75% of the time, the winning lineup has either a running back or a wide receiver in the captain spot. So guys that have upside, obviously, Deontay, Claypool, Juju. I think those 3 are going to be the most popular and the captain for GPPs. All 3 possess pretty big upside, in my opinion. I think all 3, this is basically the same situation as Seattle, right? With Metcalf and Lockett, those guys had enormous upside. You can say the same thing about Johnson, Claypool, and Juju. A little bit harder to kind of nail down which one's going to be, but those are going to be the 3 most popular plays in the captain, in my opinion. Can you go RG3 in the captain? Yeah, a contrarian. That's definitely a contrarian captain, but again, does still have some rushing upside. Benny Snell in the captain, I think does go overlooked. Again, the downside there is just Pittsburgh, even when they're playing from head, they're just not running the ball a ton. And then if you need a cheaper captain, don't hate the idea of going to Ebron. Again, I like the upside on Hollywood Brown. It's just he's kind of a boom or bust option right now. Would I go Dez Bryant in the captain? Does he really have a huge upside? I don't know. So that's probably to the extent I would go, taking a shot on someone super cheap. You can do it, but I'm not really looking to go there on the slate. Really, the captains for me. Probably for GPPs, the most popular way to go is one of those Steelers wide receivers, whether it be Deontay, Claypool, or Juju Smith-Schuster. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't upload videos when I'm live. Yeah, this game, again, midday, guys. I will be live streaming 30 minutes before lock on my YouTube channel, so make sure to check the live stream. We'll go over all this news. We'll answer all you guys' questions. We'll talk about some more builds in the live stream. So yeah, very, very important to check it out tomorrow. Thanks again. I hope you guys all have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow in the live stream.